You asked for a video going through all the different conditional display options, so let's do it. We're going to go through each of the conditional display options as a very basic overview, and I'm going to give you a couple general ideas of how you might use each and every one, or at least the vast majority of the conditional display features inside of the Thrive suite. If you're not familiar with how conditional display works, here's a very quick overview. Essentially, you add a container to a page like a content box or a background section. So let's do that right now. For us, we'll go ahead and add a background section. When you click on the background section, on the left-hand side, if you scroll down, you'll see a section called Conditional Display. And when you open that up, you'll see that by default, every container, like a background section or a content box, has what's called the default display. This is the normal display that, if no conditions are applied, will be shown. And by its nature, conditional display is a display or not display feature. So it's going to show or not show something based on those conditions. Now, just because it's limited to showing something doesn't mean that we can't use conditional display functionally. And that's because these are content boxes or background sections. They're containers. So we can put functioning things inside of a content box or a background section, and the fact that it can display or not display can mimic functionality. So with our background section selected, let's go ahead and go to our conditional display section and let's click Add Display. Now what we've done here is we've added a display on top of our default display. That means if the conditions of this display option are met, it will show over the default display. So there is a hierarchy here, and that's why if you go to the very far left of each of these display options, you can drag and drop them because we're going to be setting a hierarchy. So keep that in mind as you build more complex displays. Because the nature of conditional display can be a little bit compounding, a little bit confusing, I highly recommend that you click the pencil icon and give each of your displays a descriptive name of what will be shown inside of that container. This is helpful because this name does appear just for you, not for the front end, but for you in several places inside of this back end area. Now let's take a look at each of the individual conditional display functions, and let's walk through some examples on how you might use them on your site. To get there, we're going to click on the Display Conditions button. I never know what this thing is. I feel like I should zoom in on it someday. I think it looks like one of those like filter slider things, so we'll click on that. And as I mentioned before, we can display content or we can hide content. This is going to be the main condition when our condition set is met. So you can kind of work either way. You can work to hide something or work to show something, and usually the conditions that you make also function in the inverse if you were to say the opposite is true. So for example, if logged out, hide something. If logged in, show something. Those are kind of like the inverse. Clicking New Condition Set, we can bring up our condition window where we can start to craft our conditions. Again, I recommend you click the pencil button and give this a descriptive name. Here we have our when condition. When this happens, think of it like a trigger. So inside of our when conditions, we have users, poster page, time and date, request data, and so on. Let's go through these. So user is the visitor on your website when they are a user. Poster page, that's going to relate to, in WordPress, a post or a page. So think of a post type, a blog post or something like that, or a page, like a static page that's just like an about page or a contact page. Time and date is going to reference the real life time and date. Request data, that gets a little bit more technical, and I've actually shown some previous videos on that on conditional display, but we'll go into that in a second. Referral is going to reference where the visitor is coming from. And then Thrive Apprentice course, lesson, and module are fairly self-explanatory, but we'll dive into those. So let's go ahead and start at the top with user. When user is logged in, that one's pretty obvious, and so is logged out. So we've got previous videos on this on the channel where I show you how to use this for example, a dashboard, for showing a different logo, for showing a different navigation, things like that. That one's pretty straightforward, I think you'll agree. The role option is just going to bring up all of the user roles that are on your website. Now, user roles vary site to site. This is what's on my website. The standard WordPress user roles are admin, editor, author, contributor, and subscriber. If you've added a tool like WooCommerce, you're going to see customer, shop manager, things like that. So at one point in time, although it's not true now, I did have WooCommerce on my site and it didn't clean up after itself. It left these user roles. I kind of hate that. These can be deleted using a tool like User Role Editor. There's probably a dozen of them out there that you can use. If you use another tool that adds user roles, then those will be here as well. And then you can make conditions based off of the user roles. For example, if you have a website where you use user roles to manage your membership plugin, then you could have a rule where if someone is in this particular user role, show them this content. And if they're not, show them the non-user role content. It functions similar to like a membership would in that case. User roles are fairly broad, and I would say that they're not going to be a option that most people will use. Most people will default to some of the other ways of filtering users. The next one is last logged in. I think this one's pretty neat because you can create a display feature where maybe somebody hasn't logged in a few months. So for example, if you have a course and someone hasn't logged in 2 months, then you could show a message that says, hey, welcome back. Haven't seen you in a while. If you have any questions, go ahead and email me here. Or you can leave them a message or show them a message that might just assume the fact that you know they haven't been there in a while and assume the reason. Maybe they need to be more engaged in the content. Maybe they are confused or need more additional help. So you could even promote like a consultation to those people and say, hey, welcome back. Haven't seen you in a while. If you need any help, click here to schedule a call with me, something like that. So this is a great tool to use for re-engagement of visitors. Registration date's actually a really neat one, and I'm going to be using this in the near future. So taking a step back, registration date essentially is going to give you the option to say whether or not the time and the date that somebody registered is more than so many days ago, less than so many days ago, on this exact date, before or after a date. And what's neat about this then is you can create a page where people who registered on your site before a certain date see one thing, people who registered after a certain date see something else. This is kind of neat for, in my use case, I'm going to create a profile page, and some of my original users registered and created accounts through one method that they're going to facilitate and manage their profiles through. And I'm going to show them that version if they registered back when that was the system. If they registered later using a new system, I'm going to show them how to manage their profile and show their actual profile management the new way. So I can have one page that lets all of my users manage their profiles, but those who registered before a certain date are going to manage it the way that would actually work for them, and the others are going to manage it the new way. So it's just a neat way for you to be able to create a consistent experience despite there being, to the user, unknown inconsistencies in the backend. Kind of neat. Username is quite literally going to set a condition based on a specific user. That one is super granular and pretty simple to understand. If this matches or does not match this username, show a message. Number of comments, that's an interesting one. You could use that in your comment section inside a Thrive theme builder to create a conditional display that shows if this is the first time somebody's commenting. You could craft a display that might be more engaging to draw them in to comment. But if the system knows they have commented in the past, then maybe you don't need to draw them in so much. You could just say, hey, welcome back. You have any thoughts on this article or on this lesson or something like that? So that one's pretty easy. And then the last one is one that we've used many times on the channel here, has access to Thrive Apprentice products. This one essentially lets you create or hide a display option based on whether or not this user is logged in, because that's the only way you know if they have access to a product, and whether or not they have access to a product or not, so that you can show a crafted message specific to that user, specific to what they've purchased and what they own. This is really helpful if you're going to craft a sales message. So for example, if somebody is inside of one of your courses, but they do not have access to your membership, then you can promote your membership, try to upsell them into the membership. All right, so that's everything under user. Let's go ahead and move on to poster page. Here we have options like title, category, tag, parent title, and so on. We're not going to go into all of these because just most of them aren't super relevant. If you had a very specific blog post that was just a pillar post on your website and you knew exactly which one it was, you could create a conditional display based on the title. And using these poster page elements, so we're going to take one step back here. When you use poster page, I feel like these conditional display elements should probably be at the theme builder template level, because what you're going to do is you're going to show something based on what page they're on and what post they're on. Therefore, it makes sense that this condition would be checking that, which means it would be on all the pages. So you'd be just by the very nature of this, putting it at the theme level. So for title, here's an example. If it were the pillar post on your site, then you could display a certain opt-in or lead magnet on your sidebar. If not, then it would show something else. Category is a pretty interesting option. This lets you show something based on the category that a page or a post is in. One example would be to have a top section on every blog post, kind of like I have on my site, convology.com. You can go look at it. Essentially, you could craft that to be customized based on the different category of your post. So in my case, I have categories for like building a website, crafting a membership, things like that. I could color code them. So my header section might be blue for building a website. It might be green for growing your business. It might be purple for courses and memberships. And I could do different backgrounds and tones and things like that. Totally customizable, totally up to you. Tags, exact same as categories. Parent title, that's a little too vague. We'll go through that. That's going to be more like if you group pages and stuff like that. Comment count, we'll skip over that. There's not a lot you would do there. Post type, that's going to function kind of like categories, but post types, if you're not familiar, WordPress uses post types. So blog posts are not the only posts. That gets too technical for this, but you would use it the same way. Post status, kind of irrelevant. Author name, you could have an author box down below and a whole customizable custom display section based on who authored the post. So that's one nice idea. And then has featured image, it's not too useful. All right, time and date. This one's pretty easy. We've actually gone over this in a previous video, in my video about 5 tips for using conditional display. Essentially, you can create stuff on your page that shows during only certain times of the day, week, month, and so on. So for example, if you're a brick and mortar store, you can show that you are open when it's between the hours of 9 and 5, or you could show closed otherwise, and you can show one phone number during business hours and another when you're closed. It's just a use case there. So request data has 3 options: cookie, post variable, and URL query string. These would all function exactly the same. It's going to reference something about the user, and you could then show and customize conditional display based on that fact. Using cookies is extremely complicated for just the average user. There are plugins that let you cookie the user based on certain things. We're not going to go too much into that, but one example would be if somebody had visited a page before, you would be able to then show them something custom based on that fact. URL query strings, we've gone over those as well in a previous video. This allows you to create something on a page that references something in the URL. So for example, convology.com / here's the variable, $affiliate equals Doug. What you could do there is you could have your page show a version of your landing page or your sales page for people who came to this page from Doug's audience. This is that example we talked about in my 5 tips for using conditional display, where you can customize the same sales page or the same landing page for different affiliates who've sent traffic your way, or creating partnerships with brands and things like that. Post variables, it's just too complicated, so we're not going to go into that. Referral kind of falls into the same line, a little bit of the same thinking as our query strings and cookies. We can have conditional display options based on the URL that sent people to the page, the domain, or another post on our site, or another page, or things like that, like categories and tags. Really, all this is doing is it's trying to identify the path that somebody took when they came to the page that has your conditional display box on it. So in this case, the top level, and these kind of get more granular as they go down this list. If someone came to your page or your post or saw this conditional display section, having come from another URL, then you could show them something different. Domain is a little different from URL. URL could be a specific URL. Domain could be convology.com. Post and page are pretty obvious. If someone went from one page on your site, so for example, if somebody was on a course sales page and then they went to my membership sales page, maybe on my membership page, I have a conditional display section that knows they came from a course page. So it knows they're looking at something more expensive. So maybe I change the wording of that box to convey the fact that they're getting so much more than just one course. Apprentice course, apprentice lesson, and apprentice module are all the same. So we're just going to look at the course level. but apply everything to lessons and modules as well. We can have a conditional display based on the title of the course. This would be functional at the course theme level. So inside of Thrive Apprentice, there's a design section, and in that design section, you can design the theme or the theming for your Thrive Apprentice courses separate from Thrive Theme Builder. So you can create templates and template sections just for Theme Builder, and those are shown across all of your courses. So similar to a blog post, how a blog post might have a top section consistent across all blog posts, a Thrive Apprentice lesson will have a top section consistent to all Thrive Apprentice lessons that share that same template. For example, all video lessons will share the video lesson template, so you might put a conditional display section at the top that knows whether or not they're in a certain course or not, and it can show different messages based on that course. So if you have courses on your website, let's say they're in a course about photography, you could have a conditional display section that says, are they in the course about photography? Okay, show them a promo for the videography course. Or you could have it say, if they don't have access to the videography course, then show them this promotion. If you have a multi-author site, for example, you're not the only person on your site that has courses for sale or is teaching courses, then you could have different conditional display sections based on the particular author. So if I'm the author on one of my courses and John Doe's the author on another course on my same site, we could have different display sections where maybe we have consultations available for both of us, but our calendar and our booking options change based on who the author is on the course. So in my case, the conditional display would show my booking calendar, and if they were in a course by John Doe, it would show his booking calendar. Course topic's an interesting one because this is customized based on your particular Thrive Apprentice setup. Thrive Apprentice courses have what are called course topics. They don't actually have to have course topics. You could just have one course topic that all your courses are in, like courses or workshops. But if you do a lot of organizing based on whether the content on your course is a workshop or a course or on one topic or another, and you have a vast array of topics, well, then you can use topics almost like you would use conditional display for categories. For example, if you had a website where, let's say it was travel themed, but you had a course all about traveling to a specific country, you could then have promotional materials and lead magnets and upsells and things within that course relevant to that specific category, such as travel. And you could get really granular if you use the post title one and the course topic, and you could do course travel to Scotland or something like that. If your same site had courses on travel, but you also had courses on photography, you could then say, is this a topic about photography? If so, maybe show them something about photography in another country and cross-promote your travel courses as well. These are just a couple examples on how you can use these on your site. The next option is the restricted content level. The restricted content level is, again, similar to the topics, something that you've set on your own site. So on your site, you can have as many of these or as few of these as you want. I've created pro member only and premium course content level restrictions. Kind of like the course topic level, this would be more of like a cross promote kind of show theming or show different options based on the restricted content level. Not something that I think there's going to be a wide applicable use for, but you do have the option. Difficulty level is an interesting one, particularly if you have a course setup where you have a wide variety of difficulty and it actually is based on difficulty. So my mind immediately goes to things like school, more like an academic learning environment where, let's take math, for example, right? Let's say you had courses that were elementary algebra, advanced algebra, algebra 2, and calculus, right? You might say intermediate algebra would be easy, algebra might be intermediate, and calculus might be advanced. That makes a lot of sense for you then to have difficulty levels for your courses. I personally, despite on the screen here having different options for difficulty levels, I don't really use them a lot on my site. In fact, I think I only show them in one place. They're not super relevant because my courses are more topic-based rather than difficulty-based. But if you do have a topic where there are varying degrees of difficulty, then you could use conditional display inside of your Apprentice theme, if someone were in an advanced course, maybe some of the sections in the theme might provide the user more options to contact you for help, to go into the community. If someone were in more of an easy level, you might use those same sections to promote moving them through the course faster or to promote keeping them engaged in the content. Course Progress has a few options here. We can show something on our website based on how far someone is inside the course. You could have a conditional display section in the sidebar of your course template that when someone completes 50% of a lesson, it will show them a message. It'll come up on the sidebar and it will say something to the effect of, "You're more than halfway there. If you have any questions, let me know." Something like that. When someone completes a course, if they're 100%, you could use conditional display that promotes the user moving on to the next course or sells them the next product or otherwise keeps them engaged. Okay, so that was actually kind of long. That was a look at all of the different conditional display sections and just a general. Honestly, it was a pretty broad, pretty general look at what you might be able to do with them. But you asked for this broad overview. I know that some of you are just getting started and looking for ideas for how you can generally approach using conditional display. And I know some of you are in a different place. Some of you are already way past the generality and you want to get specific use cases. So I encourage you to leave a comment as others have done requesting videos. If you have a specific use case, maybe you don't know how to do something, or maybe you know what you want to do, but you're wondering what the best way to accomplish it would be, maybe with conditional display, feel free to leave a comment, request a video, and let me know. I really am trying to make videos that are going to help you, the viewer, to accomplish your goals using, in this case, Thrive Suite and the tools that we have available to us, but I'm also willing to make videos on all of the tech stack that you've seen me use here at Convology. So with that, I welcome you to subscribe and turn on the notifications so that you'll know when I release new videos every week here on the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.